if you need me to help you better, then you have to share the screen so that I can tell you what mistake you're making and all that, right? I can understand your question better. So, but for today, it's fine. After today, you can do it. Okay, so let's get started. We already wasted about 15, 16 minutes on this. So, okay, welcome to the session. Here's a deck. I'll first give you some overview and then also show you some hands-on demos. Uh, I'm assuming that you don't know much about Power Apps, Flow, and CDS, but if there's something that you already know, let me know, because this is the introductory one. So I'm just assuming that you don't have much background in this. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, so we'll start from there. Um, go back to my, okay. So going back to why Power Apps and why this was created and how it can help you. So as you know, given your background in consulting and all that, that building business applications have very hard and competing requirements. On one hand, you have to make sure that these apps are enterprise ready. So that means you have to make sure they're secure, scalable, managed, integrated, compliant, all those things that you must have heard many times. On the other hand, these days users are getting more and more demanding, and they expect the similar experience that they get in any consumer app. So it has to be fast, very quickly iterative. It has to work on all the platforms, so different phones, tablets, iPhone, Android, on the computer. It has to look beautiful. It has to be easy to be used. So gone are those days when people could just create one desktop app that was not working properly. There was somehow had some clumsy interface, and that was good enough for enterprise. Now, you not only have to make sure that those apps are enterprise ready, you also have to make sure they're very modern and available on all the platforms, all the devices. So what happens because of that? Because of that, since these take building these kind of apps take a lot of time, and you might have seen that in your job that typically IT department of the companies, they can afford to build very few apps themselves because it takes time. They cannot just release something without making sure that they're secure, scalable. At the same time, they cannot just release something without making sure it has good user experience available everywhere. So very few of the application needs are met, and there are a lot of big, these gray boxes here means a lot of unmet needs as well. When I say unmet needs, as I mean like there's so many opportunities to automate some business process, build some applications in the context of businesses that just cannot be done because there's no bandwidth available. There's always shortage of resources, and these apps take long time. The other problem is, uh, as you might have seen from your experience, application development should be an iterative process. It should not happen. People now sometimes have some idea, and before they can sell this as the big application that IT resources should be dedicated to, you need to first prototype your idea, run it by some people, see how it works, refine it before you can actually sell it. And that becomes another blocker because people who have business background, people who have domain expertise, they don't have technical skills, all the advanced technical skills to build an app. So they don't know how to put their idea into a prototype that people can understand, and then they learn from that and they revise it. So these are some challenges that was seen in this business application world, and that's the challenge. That's a market space that Microsoft Power Platform is trying to address with these business applications. So Power Apps, Flow are one of them, or two of them. Uh, but overall, this is called Power Platform with low coding or no coding. So that's the promise. When you hear about some revolution called, hey, we these days business apps are going through low coding, no coding revolution. That means for your basic idea, you don't need to be an advanced developer. You can just use your basic Excel, macro, formula, those kind of skills, build some basic apps, get your idea to fruition, and then get the learning. But when you're ready, That's the next part. When you're ready, you can always enhance it. So you don't have to throw it away. When you feel that your initial app idea now has got legs, it needs to be enhanced. You can then extend that with some Azure services, .NET services, some REST services, whatever you can do. You can hand it over to the developer, and they can enhance it more from the backend side. Uh, Now, I'll talk about the last layer, but when Microsoft says Power Platform, they actually mean three things, although we'll be mostly talking about two. But if you think about business applications, they typically have three broad level of requirements. One is measurement, means analytics, getting the reports and all those things. Other is act. Act means have some app where you take some action, record some data, and the third one is automate. So it doesn't have to be a user action, but it has to be some kind of a workflow. And when we get into flow, you'll understand more. And these are the three broad areas where this Power Platform comes into play. And for all these three requirements, this Power Platform lets you create those things without much coding experience to begin with. The last layer is there are a lot of data sources also, and we'll talk about how you can connect to them. That's what connectors and gateways are, because these enterprises and businesses have data at variety of places which are secure from enterprise perspective, like SharePoint. It could be their own SQL server. It could be their own, I don't know, ERP system or custom database, what have you. Uh, they this platform has a lot of connectors to those data in the enterprise so that you can easily connect to that data and build your app. Because one of the challenges that you might have seen is connecting to that data itself is a big problem. And so this is kind of made available via connectors. Now the gateways means many of these are not cloud databases. So for example, SQL, Azure, or SharePoint Online. If your customer, your client, or your employer is still has not migrated to cloud, then these gateways let you connect to those on-premise databases as well. Now, yeah, so that's the other part. Now that on the left side, you see this common data model, and I'll show you the demo so you'll get better idea. But the concept here is, yeah, you might already have a data source which could be cloud, which could be on-prem, and you can connect to it. But sometimes if you have your new app idea, and as a business person, as a person who is not like advanced developer, you don't want to be in the business of like spinning up a database, managing it, maintaining it, administering it. So common data model is kind of think about it as a database that is made for people who are more like a business people, who are more like low code, no code kind of people. And all the complexity of spinning up the database, managing the database, scalability, disaster recovery, all those things, you don't even need to worry about. You don't even need to know what they are. It's almost like Excel in the cloud. And when I show, yeah, 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 yeah. No, so if you have SharePoint online, meaning Office 365, right? Yeah, then you don't need. For that, you have ready-made connectors. Yeah, but if your SharePoint or your company has not migrated to Office 365 and your SharePoint is in some on-prem server, you can still connect to it, but you need a gateway at that point. And more than SharePoint, what you will see more common is for SQL Server. So have you heard about SQL Azure? Yeah. So think about, have you heard about Azure in general? So as have you heard about cloud computing? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so at high level, think about like some company like Amazon and Microsoft. These are two most popular companies in cloud space. Although Google is also coming up. So you can, without you procuring a server, buying a server, and putting stuff on that, you can just through the interface create a database and put the stuff there. That's what SQL Azure is. The thing is database in the cloud, and similarly Amazon and these guys have some. Now, it's in Microsoft shops, this SQL Azure is becoming very popular. But again, for old companies, they have not migrated to cloud, so they have a lot of SQL Server on-prem. So SQL Server on-prem connection to this app needs this gateway. Make sense? Any other question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just that SharePoint gateway needs a lot of work. So that's something that not everybody can easily do it. Whereas connecting to SharePoint online is very easy. If you already have Office 365, it can be very easily done. Yeah. But and as we go forward, you'll see is for depends on your requirement. If you have an app idea that needs to connect to existing data, then you should see how to connect. But if you have an app idea and for that there's no existing data source, you want to create your own data source. For that, you can even use common data model, common data service, they call it, uh, which will make it much easier for you. But if you already have data, then it will be harder to get started with common data service. So that's how you can make the decision. Okay. All right. So moving on. So again, it's kind of a summary of what I just said. Yeah. No, no, you don't need to. You don't need to learn Power Query. Power BI is different though. So I'm not going to cover Power BI in this course. Power BI is separate. The reason I wanted to present it is like a Microsoft overall calls this as Power Platform, and sometimes you will see that Power Apps is embedded into Power BI or Power BI is embedded into Power Apps. So in that context, you'll see mention of it. But Power BI is slightly different. It's more for analytics and reporting, and less for app creation. Whereas, so depends what you want to do. If you want to do very basic thing like take the data source and create some dashboard and chart, you don't need Power Query. But if you want to do detailed analytics, like you want to do some special function and special statistics and all that, for that you will need Power Query. Yeah. Okay. So now, so it's yeah. So this is kind of summary of what I was telling about this platform. One part is you can connect to the data and systems you're already using. So this is one of the value of our cloud platform. The second is without code, and without code is not always true, but either without code or very low code, you can create applications, forms, workflows, and all those things. And the last one is, and which is very powerful, that as soon as you create the app, you can just push it and it becomes available on web and mobile and tablet and all the devices. And this is a big value because those who have done application development for phones and all that, they know that first of all you have to learn different languages like either Objective C or Swift or something for for Apple App Store. Then you have to learn Java for Android, and then you have to make them go through the application review process and all that. It becomes very, very painful and very long stretched process, and it's not worth doing for those small business ideas that you have in your app, in your business world. So this becomes very powerful, and when you see the demo, you'll understand what I'm talking about. One thing that you did not ask, but many people ask is, okay, so this is great, but can I use this for building some consumer apps? By consumer app, I mean like something that is not used within business. And answer is no. The purpose of this is to purpose of these technologies is to build applications to be used within the company, not outside the company. Okay. All right. So this is how Power Apps interface overall looks like. You will see that this is combination. This seems like partly slide PowerPoint and partly Excel, and that's by design because the audience for building this is people who have good expertise in these kind of things. So at high level, you will see forms, screens, visual designer. So you can drag and drop and you'll see what you get, that kind of things. But at the same time, you can also take advantage of some device capabilities because we're talking about mobile apps also, like cameras or GPS or pen controls, those things. Uh, So when I said combination of slide and Excel, here's the other part is like business logic is you were asking about Power Query. You don't need to know Power Query, but the language is very similar to Excel expression language. Expression language is like what you typically use in Excel macros and formulas. Have you ever used Excel macro or formula? Yeah, but it's very simple. So even if you haven't, it's very simple to do. As I'll see, I mean, most of the people who use it are like marketers and finance people and all that. They are not coders. Okay, and the last, what's that? Sorry. Yeah, yeah. And even if you don't know what expression language is fine, but it's very intuitive. And when we do the demo, you'll see it. All right. So the last part is, yeah, you can extend the capabilities to something that I was saying earlier. You can build the app, but you can also extend the capability to connect to different data sources. And it's very easy to connect. You don't have to worry about, hey, what protocol, what API, what endpoint. Those things are very, very easy to get that. And when we go through the demo, you'll see how intuitive it is. All right. Again, these are the example, but again, they have about, I don't know, that number keeps changing, but maybe 500, 600, and they just keep on adding new connectors almost every day. But these are some examples. It's combination of common data sources that you'll see in the enterprises. At the same time, some data sources that you will see being used in the in non-enterprise world. And that is the value of it. You can very easily connect different data sources. So part of your data might be in SharePoint, part of your data might be in SQL, part of your data might be in Twitter. You can quickly build an app that connects to all the data sources and builds the app for you. That's another very powerful. Yeah. To yeah. 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 So think of connector as connector, something that lets you connect to a data source. Okay. Now the data source typically are in cloud, like you said, but if your data is in on-premise, you need connector for that on-premise, but you also need a gateway. Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on, we talked about this. So I'll skip it. Like the app that you publish, it's available on tablet, different phones, all these things immediately. No app store requirement. And when I show you my phone, you'll understand how that's possible. Yeah, yeah. Just download PowerApps app, and then as you publish your created app, it will be available on PowerApps. Okay. So now common use cases, just in case you're wondering like what kind of apps I can create. These are some examples, doesn't mean that it's the only list, but it could be HR related, as you can see here, like time away, onboarding, handbook. It could be general ongoing engagement with the employee, IT help desk, campus resources. It could be for helping salespeople while they're on always traveling, they're on the phone. How can they easily find all the information about the customer? It could also be services and customer support related. So variety of use cases, which could be you can call them as like office or mobility and sales related. At the same time, many of the scenarios, depending on your case, are um, uh, manufacturing and non-software related as well. So for example, vending machine, how do you make sure that vending machine has everything properly filled up and people get notified in advance that something should be filled now? Similarly, here's another example, and these are real examples you'll also see on Microsoft site. uh, Here's another example, like you have some quality control process. How can you monitor this on tablet? Here's another example. How can you make, this is an example where this company had very complex process for maintaining the electric motors, and they were making many human errors. These electric motors take like 1 month sometimes to repair, and nobody knew what's going on. So they created this app that they could like use for not only standardizing their process for each and every step, they could easily find the report. So that really optimized their productivity. Here's another one, like Alta is a company which is in wind energy. They have big wind plants, windmills, and maintenance of that was a big deal. And maintenance of windmills is like flying out someone to those remote locations. Um, and since they were in 9 to 5 support model, they didn't know how to prioritize. So every time they had to call some very senior people to make the decision, which was not very helpful. So they created this app, and behind the app there was a logic, and now call center people could just take the request and get the recommendation around the priority of that thing, and then decide whether to send the technician right now or wait for 1 week. So they were doing some cost benefit analysis without those people thinking hard. It was just being done by the app. So anyway, the point here is like the variety of app ideas that you can think about depending on your company, your business. It could be like HR, sales, and office related kind of applications, or it could also be people on the field, manufacturing, automation, efficiency, maintenance, all those things. And there are a bunch of examples like that. So I'm just going to start showing you hands-on, but any question at this point? Yeah. So Microsoft has two different clouds. One is Office 365 and other is Dynamics 365. Uh, Office 365 consists of things which are more like office worker productivity related. So what I mean by that is, let's say Outlook, SharePoint, Excel online, PowerPoint online, those kind of things. So more productivity and office collaboration related. Dynamics 365 is another cloud of Microsoft, and that has software and products like Dynamics CRM, Exapta of operations. Now they are also doing HR and all that. So their idea is how can you manage your business better and selling those kind of products. So how can you manage your customer relationship better? How can you manage your service and support better? So both are the two clouds, and this product can connect to both the clouds. And that's a very common app scenario where people take some data from Dynamics and some data from SharePoint and some data, let's say, from Twitter, and then combine all that and get some insight. Any other question? Okay. All right. So let me switch gear and go to. Have you ever seen SharePoint? Yeah. So so at high level, think of this as like this is a SharePoint site. This is one of my demo area where. What's that? Yeah, SharePoint Online. But the interface is the same whether it's online or on-prem. It's just that if it's online, when it's in cloud, it can be easily connected to. IT doesn't have to worry about the maintenance and all that, and it gets updated more frequently. But underlying core software is the same. Okay, so this is like a SharePoint site. Think about SharePoint site as an intranet site that people can easily create within the company. So like here's a site that I created test for me. You can do different things, like you can put the document. That's very common use case where just people put all the documents for their collaboration. So let's say you and I are working in a company and I created some presentation. I'll put it here. Then somebody else will also put it here, or you can easily access and modify from here. So it helps a lot in collaboration and other things. Okay. And then you can also use this and very easily create the website. And it has been very popular product of Microsoft for a long time. But now people like, I think it's 15, 20 years, if I'm not wrong. But now people are moving on to more mobile and other world. So they love SharePoint, but they want to make sure that they can have more modern experience on top of SharePoint. One of the very popular thing in SharePoint is something called list. You see a list here? So List is, think of this as like almost like a database. So I can say demo list. Okay, so this is the list. Now think of this as like a table, right? Again, as a non-technical person, I can create this kind of a table, and let's say this list has to have title and let's say single line of text, and I'll call it description, right? And many times people say, let's say they're signing up for, I don't know, they even use it for bugs and issues and those kind of things also. So let's say type description, and I'll save this column. And let's say I'll just create one more column for, go ahead. Yes. So this is kind of a table name. You can call it anything. Yeah. So for example, I can even, yeah. So think about title list as the name of the column. I can rename it to say issue, just issue headline, let's say. Okay. So now these became two columns. This is a table. This is a table, and yeah. Yes, yes. And you can keep adding column, there are different kinds of columns that you can add. Makes sense? And many, I don't know whether your company does it or not, many organizations, they use SharePoint list very extensively. Yeah, yeah. So this is like one example of it. Okay. There's one that I created here already. It's called product catalog, just for preparing for this. So for example, I want to maintain my list of catalog. So I said title, description. I did not put any description, severity, picture, add column, right? I can add another row, and it's so simple because now pretty much I'm adding data in the database, right? So I just click on, yeah, yeah. So one row I already added, okay, and by clicking new, I can also add new record. So I need to sign here. Actually, let me show it here how it looks so that you understand. Okay. And this SharePoint not only has the list, it also has the um, it also has other things like documents and all that. One way, like sometimes this interface becomes confusing because, for example, I created that list and I can't easily find it because I did not create a shortcut probably. So what I do here, I go to the SharePoint home and click on site contents. Clicked on site content. Okay, and I see that demo list here, right? If I see that I should kind of, let's say, rename it, I can also rename it. So I'll call it, let's say, issue list. Okay. And so now we have our issue list ready, and we can start adding values here. So I have issue headline, description. Let me add one more column where I'll just say picture URL. And you'll understand why later on, understand why I'm putting that. So, okay, so now let's say my basic table is ready. I create, this is a new data I'm adding. So let's say, I say carpet dirty. Please Yeah. So internally, SharePoint still calls it title, but for you can see headline. Yeah. Yeah. That's how internally SharePoint maintains it. I just created one thing. I have some data ready, which I'm going to start using. Let's see if I have it. Yeah. Yeah. For the company. So you see, I added the first row. I'll just create two rows and I'll show you how quickly you can create a Power Apps app on top of this. So let me go back to here and let's say tile broken. I'm just pretending that I'm in construction industry and I there's an inspector who is going and putting some issues and we have the picture. Right now uh, for example sake, I'm taking the URL. In future, we can also see how you can actually take the photo from the app and store it directly. But for simplicity's sake, let's take the URL right now. Okay, so now I have two records, and this is my SharePoint list. Now, there are many ways I can do Power Apps. If you look at the list at the top, you see that, yeah, yeah, yeah. So product catalog is the name of the list. These are, think of these as the shortcuts that we created. Now, if you want to really find out, then you can, which one is list, which one is what, you can just go to site contents from here. And in the site contents, you will see like which one is list, which one is document library, which one is pages library. Yeah. List is like table. Yeah, loosely, although behind the scene it's not table, but yeah, roughly you can say it's a table. Yeah, yeah, yes. So this is my issue list. Okay, so if your company already has a list like this, you can easily create an app on top of this. And that's one value you can show. There are many ways you can do it. Like at the list, you see at the top this option, Power Apps. You can create an app from here. You also see Flow, but let's ignore Flow now. So you can create an app from here, or you can directly go to Power Apps site. So this is the Power Apps site. You can sign in. And if your company has not signed in, you can always use your work email, whatever you use your work email, and you can just sign up for Power Apps using that. Basic version is free. Yeah, when I sign it, it automatically takes me to web.powerapps.com. So website is powerapps.com or Microsoft. If you do Google search, you can easily find it. But when you sign in, then it just redirects you here. Okay, and this is the web interface. As you can see, this is the web interface that is there for creating the app. So you see apps here. This app says the list of apps that I have already created for my own testing, but I can very easily create a new app. Just say create, and it gives me multiple options. It says uh, Canvas app, and so I'll get talk about some of these things. But for now, let's focus on Canvas app. High level difference is that model driven app means that you first start with data. Canvas app means you do the UI first, and then it just easily connects to the data. Okay, and then it also has bunch of sample apps here. So just in case you want to get inspired and say, hey, what all I can do, these are all sample apps that you can just click and see what they're doing. In many cases, yeah, 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 yes. Most of the samples, yeah, some of these are model driven app. And PowerApps initially released just the Canvas app, but this is a new thing that they started. But that's going to be slightly more complicated. So for beginner, you should just look at Canvas app for now. Okay. So and then you have many samples here, and you can actually, yeah, yes, yeah, and uh, it's just the name. And for these, you can also see the preview of these things. So yeah, just go to these. I open this, yeah, and then click on preview. So just you see the sample. Let's say you like this and you're curious, click on this, and you'll just, and you can even see different options. And if you like it, you can actually some of these you can. So because your app could be either on the phone or the tablet. If you do use the tablet format, it will be wide. If you use the phone format, it will be narrow. Make sense? You can, but it will look weird. So let me show you what I mean. Let me project my phone, then probably it will be more obvious. Just give me a second. Mm, okay. Probably because I'm in the call, it's not letting me project. Because usually I can see my phone here.
Oh,
Let me disconnect the call for a second and see if that helps.
okay.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, you can see my screen? Yep.
Yeah, I do.
But probably,
Oh, open. So you're showing me your screen. Okay.
yeah, but probably it's not moving. 1 second. I think it's just showing the recorded one. Yeah. Probably I'll have to disconnect and I'll speak on Skype because when I disconnect, then I can see it. Otherwise, I can't. Uh,
Oh,
you can hear me from Skype also, right?
right, I do. So you're, yeah, but only thing is you cannot hear me.
Yeah, I'll disconnect after showing it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. put my call. Okay.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're listening. So here's the PowerApps app. So I went to the App Store uh, and I can go to search for PowerApps. I already installed, but for you to try out, go to PowerApps. Sorry, not PowerApps Inc. PowerApps. And this is the first app. Click on Open. And so for this one, once you sign in, you'll see all your apps which are here. You can also see some sample apps. The one that I was showing you there, these are the sample apps that they have put, and you can also see it on your phone how they look like. But for you to see, it's going to connect you to Office 365. Let's say I connect it, and it will just show me some of those things. But let me go back to the app that I created. So this app, for example, is more in mobile app. So you see this format where it's a small screen that's fitting in the phone. But the last one I think is tablet app. So let me click on that and see, although I can see it, but let me try other one. Although I can see it and it seems like tablet on the phone, but it feels weird because I have a small screen and it feels weird. Although when I project it here on the computer, it seems like, oh yeah, it's tablet, so what's wrong? But you should see some of the tablet apps on your phone and you will know what I'm talking about. I have to kind of put this in landscape mode and then only I can see it, but still the screen is small and the app is made more for the bigger screen. So that's the main thing. I'm going to disconnect from here and call you from the phone so that I can take a question. Hi, um, could you hear me while I was showing? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because many times they say, give me a web app. So you can also create a tablet app because that's a big one and it works on web, and then they can also use it on tablet. They can also use it on the phone, but it just it will look weird. It's not like it will not work. It'll just look like small screen, but a very big screen. Make sense? Okay, sounds good. So now let's say if we have to create from blank, let's start creating from blank. Uh, this is uh, this is how you can give the name. So let's say intro demo, and I can choose which format I want. Let's say I want phone format. Yeah. Yeah. What? Yes. Yes. Yeah. So whatever credential you use for your email or something, Outlook or whatever, that's what should work if you're already on Office 365. Having said that, yeah, people can also, like, if you don't have, like, if you want to do it for your personal thing and you want to try out, there's also a free version uh, that you can do, but you have to have a work email address for free sign up. What that means is uh, you should have, you cannot use, let's say, Gmail or Yahoo or Outlook. You have to have some non-public domain, and then you can also use it. Okay. So I just said create from blank, and then I gave some name and I chose phone format. So I'm canceling it so that it doesn't do it again. And then I came here. So this is like totally blank app. where this is like a screen that I was showing you earlier. You have these screens. Think of screen as screens are screens. Some people also call it different pages, or in PowerPoint Word, these are different slides, and you can keep adding new screens also from here. It also gives you different kinds of screens. So, for example, I created this, and this is how PowerApps makes it so easy because it's adding the screen, so I let it do that. But what it's doing is creating, since I chose the list type of screen, it created this kind of basic screen for me, and also has some sample data, which is very powerful because now you already have something to start with and you can start customizing it. Okay, so for example, I can go here and you'll see something called data source here. So I'll add data source, and data source will be the SharePoint that where we were creating the list. So because right now this data is coming some sample data, which is good for to give me some UI and all that. But now let me connect it to the data source that I want to connect. So since I have not connected this app to any data source, it says nothing is there. I'm going to say add data source, and yeah, first screen is there, but it was nothing. I could have added, there's something called controls here, like these things are controls. So I could have put this list here also. So for example, this gallery, I can say add a gallery control. And I got the same thing here. You see it? Or I could insert another screen and say the screen type itself is list. So it does other things also, like it puts these buttons and those things. Again, there's no reason why we could not have done it ourselves. So for example, I can just push it down, and I can say I will put one label at the top. So I'll take a label, I'll put at the top, I'll say uh, issue list. Yeah. So it's very simple, like, with drag and drop you can start doing these things now. And then now you have your text box, like you do some formatting in PowerPoint and all that. You take this, and if you want to do formatting, there are many ways you can do it. One is you can just do it from here, like see on the right side, and you can say I want blue background and I want, let's say, white color. I want to increase the font, so go and do it here. Sorry, I'll make it bigger. Let's say this. Okay, so those things that this screen is doing, I can do it manually also. It's just that made it easy. But even doing it manually from scratch is not hard. Okay, so I got this. Now, yeah. So this is like if you have used PowerPoint or Word, you will see that you can take this control, and these are the properties like color, and I can choose any color from here, or I can create my own custom one. Yeah. So that's the standard thing. Like each color scheme, it's nothing to do with power apps, but in general, colors have follow RGBA scheme. Like what for every color, like what is the red component, what is the green component, what is the black component, and based on that, it does it. So that's, yeah. In general, that's how it does it. Okay. So for each control, you have, so the basic concept is Power Apps has something called screen, something called control. So controls are these like things that you insert, different kinds of controls, and it has some interesting, let's say, icons also here. You can add one plus icon here, and then for each of these they also have something called property. So properties are here, right? Or you can also choose properties from this list. So for example, earlier I chose from here, but this time, just to give you both the examples, I'm just going to choose from here. So color, and I will say color is red. I can also use some standard colors, and see, it automatically became red. Yeah, red was a horrible choice. So let me change it, but you get the idea. Make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So I'll come to it. So each control. So first I wanted to make sure you understand this concept, screen. Okay. Screen has different kinds of controls. It could be label. This is a button. This is a gallery. You'll see all these different kinds of controls, right? And will as we build more apps, you will understand what those controls are. But conceptually, you have screen, you have controls, and controls have something called property, like either from here or from here you can set them. Okay, and I'll tell you later on what is the value of setting them from here, because you can also make it dynamic. You can make it formula based. So when it comes to info path kind of thing, this is where Power Apps can help you do info path kind of thing. Okay, so if this is clear, then I'll come to the on select and those questions. So, but is it clear so far? Yes, yes, yes. Now, so to your question, there's something called, I don't know if you have done any other programming which are event based. Which programming language experience you have? Tell me about any. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know about that part, but have you ever used, let's say, Visual Basic or .NET or okay, so maybe the SAP app also has the same concept. Each control in the UI, they have property, and they have something called event handler. Have you heard about that? So what that means is, let's say this is your control, and control has this event handler. The different things can happen. So for example, let me see on select. Where is the on select? Oh, so it will be for button. Yeah. See here, I'm struggling to get to the button because the label is on top of button. Uh, and I was trying to do something, but there's, yeah, control. So plus side is the button. This is label. This is gallery. So I'm trying to pick this, but I'm struggling because label is on top of that. I'm showing it so that you will go through this so that you know how to handle it. Now, on the left side, you will see that there's a tree view, which has screen and different controls that it has. So I click on this and now I have control. I have handle on this. Make sense? So, so just in case you struggle, you can just click on this and you will know what it is. Okay, so I go here and now on the click of this icon, I want to do something. So then I will go to on select. So that means that what I want to do on the selection of this button, I want to change something or take some action. So one action could be, let me see what I should do. There's some concept called variable. Okay, so the way you define variable in Power Apps is it's called, there are two kinds of variable. I'm just thinking what will be the best way to do it. Let's say set context. Set update. So there's a term called update context. It lets you define a variable, and the way you do it is you say, let's say I say title. I want to put this as my list. Okay, so now what you did on selection of this, you updated the title of this. There's a variable that you define title, and you set the value my list to this. Make sense? Yeah, create or set the value to the variables. So it's not creating, it's setting the value to the variable. If the variable doesn't already exist, it will create it. If already exists, it will just update it. Make sense? Okay, so now, yeah, so now you have a variable called title, which has my list name value set to it. You can even go to here, this label, and so far I was typing this. So like text is a property which has the value issue list, right? I can change it to anything and it will change. But not only that, this is where the power of Power App starts coming. I can set this to a variable. It's a title. Okay. You know why this thing is blank? Because that variable value is blank right now. And you can see that because we did not, what's, yeah, 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 yeah. And variable value right now is nothing. That's why it's blank. And you can also see for debugging, you can go to this, see the variables, and it will tell you which variables are there on the screen and what is the value. So it says title is a variable which has no value. Yeah, yeah, I created, but remember I said that on select of this, set this, and right now we are in design mode. That means we are just creating the logic. It will be, we have not clicked on this. That event has not been triggered. Make sense? Yeah. So you see this run button. Now what I will do, I will preview this app. Still this is blank, but notice this. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this. So when I click on this, that on select event will trigger and it will do what I asked it to do. And what did I ask it to do? Yeah. So it will create title variable and assign the value my list, and that will be changing here. So see, notice this. Get it? So that is the purpose, and this is very simple, silly example, but just wanted to clarify the concept that these things will set the variable, and you can assign those variables to the property of other controls. Yeah, because that is the value. But let's say you another button. Let's say one more button, or I'll create this button. Let's say I call it, I'll just change the name of this button to reset. Okay. Name doesn't matter, but I'm just, why? Okay, reset. Now on select of this, right now it says false means do nothing. What I'm going to do, I'll update the same variable. I'll say set title to no. I'm changing the variable. So we can call it anything. We could call it myvar, and that will still work. Make sense? I could call it myvar, and see when I say myvar, this title went away. Why? Because it was set to title, but now I'm setting it to myvar. Okay. Now when I click this, it becomes my list. When I click this, it becomes no list. When I click this again, it becomes my list. So you know what's going on here? Yeah, I can call it reset or whatever, but on click of this button, this sets value of myvar to no list. Yeah, I can call it reset list. Yeah. Or I can say, to make it more clear, I can say clicked reset, and here I can say clicked plus. Okay. And so now when I go there, when I click on this, it says this. When I click on this, it says this. Yeah. Does that clarify? Yeah. So this is like basic concept that, I mean, you'll have more complexity, but I want to make sure that you first digest this much. I want to just do one more thing, and it will be after that we will wrap it up, and then in next session we can discuss more. So we talked about this, and it's coming from sample, but I do want to show you how you can get the data source from the backend very easily. So we were talking about data source. Go to data source and data. I'm adding a data source. What it's doing, you can create a new connection, but for my own trial, I had created some connection. So you can, so let's pretend that SharePoint was not there. I could have said search for SharePoint. And then remember I was talking about cloud and gateway. You can say connect directly cloud or gateway if your thing is on premise. But since, and when you say cloud, it will ask you to give the SharePoint site address. In my case, I'm just canceling it because I already connected. So this is the site. This is the site. Okay. Now, as soon as I click on the site, you will notice that it will fetch the list which we created there. So test is the list. Sorry, in the test site, test site. These are the lists that we created. Yeah, issue list, product catalog is what I had already created. I showed you. So let's say we want to do this, and now you can actually select multiple, but let's say I just select issue list and I click on this. So now my app has a database connected, database being the SharePoint list. And I could have connected any data sources like SQL or Google Drive and bunch of things, Excel, anything. Okay, so now, yeah, yeah, view data sources, add data source. Okay, so now here I will, this gallery has a property called items. Yeah, so items, I can now connect it to a data source which I already have in my app. So that thing being issue list. You see this issue list? So now see PowerApps shows the smartness here. As soon as I put that issue list, it made some guess. It guessed that, hey, title and description field will be good to show in this way. And it already did for you. But you can always customize it. Like I can say, I don't want to show, I mean, that's not a good decision, but let's say I don't want to show this. I want to show description at the top, and it'll just change it. But if I want to change this text to title, you can easily do that too. Make sense? Yeah, so whatever you had defined in your list, like title coming from this and description, but you get all these columns available. So there's another example I'll show you. Now this image control that I have here, it's connected to some sample image, but I want to connect this to this picture URL that I have put here. So all I need to do here is like come here, delete it, and say picture URL and see what magic happens. So now all those pictures automatically came here from my SharePoint list. And it's such a good view. Not only that, I can save it and so I'll save it and publish it. As soon as I say save publish, if I go back to my phone, so this is ready now. I get so it's getting saved in the Microsoft Cloud. Yeah, Microsoft Cloud. And I can also share this app. So this is another thing. There's a lot to cover in Power Apps, but this is another thing like share app. So that means you create an app and you can share with people within the company. Okay, so now I have this app ready. If I go to the phone, so I'll again disconnect for a moment so that you can see it, and then call it in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you don't need. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and you don't need to publish, but the reason you sometimes need to publish, because one thing that I'm just making the change to show you. One thing that PowerApps lets you do is when you make the first time, it's not required. But second time, when you start making changes, they don't want your user to be disturbed when you're just playing around with the changes. Okay, so I made the change, I saved it, and this time it will ask me, do you want to publish or you want to just keep doing it yourself? So this time it's asking me, so I will need to publish. Make sense? Yes. Yeah, publish means that do you want users to start seeing, or you should just you want to keep it just for yourself? Yeah. So let's say I'm not publishing it. So you see here, and let me disconnect for a moment and show you on my phone. Okay. Okay. So I'm assuming you're listening to me on Skype. I'll go to Power Apps again. I'll exit from my previous one. Okay. So at this time you see that that app is not there. I'm going to refresh it. So it should not there. Okay. Let me publish from here. It should have been here. Oh, it's because I'm using a different ID. Okay, so it's a different ID. I'll have to sign in with my uh, this demo tenant ID. Just give me a second. I'll disconnect for a moment. Hi, I could not show it on the phone because I had logged in with different ID. Yeah, so but if you log in with this ID, you will see this and it's immediately available on the phone. And next time we can show it again. So yeah. And yeah. So I want to stop here today. We are already we almost spent 90 minutes. Any last minute question last before we wrap up?